The silencing the Dragon Knight in most cases is not going to be your ideal placement of that static storm.
10 seconds remaining.
Yeah, two very aggressive picks coming out from Team Freedom in the Disruptor and Spirit Breaker. And if Abaddon has a good time in lane, most likely in the off lane, although, again, this team could run it anywhere, then it becomes the type of thing where it's hard to hold your towers, and these heroes can kind of run at you and punish you for that. And so Team Freedom may be feeling that complexity might go a little bit greedy, and they want to be able to punish that while making space at the same time for Alchemist. So really interesting to see how they finish this draft and how they decide to play it.
I'm a bit concerned for Team Freedom right now because they have a lot of melee or close range oriented heroes into a Darkseer. That means that they're more likely to be clumped up. And into the Dragon Knight splash damage that comes out of the Dragon form, the negative damage modifier that comes out from the Breathed Fire. Obviously, Ice Blast is a problem at that point. Vacuum in the wall. There are a lot of reasons that a mostly melee lineup would be difficult to run into complexity's lineup. Do you have the same concerns, or do you feel like the Spirit Breaker is going to be enough in order to break the lines, or maybe some other aspect?
It is an issue, but at the same time, Complexity are a little bit ultimate-based right now with their lineup in terms of obviously AA ult, Darkseer wall, and Dragon Knight's Dragon form. And so when you have that situation and you have good mobility from Freedom or ways to like change enemy positioning, that could be something that they leverage to their advantage. And they're going to go for the Spectre last.
Okay, the Spectre pick is all right. It's a little bit less common on this patch because it does typically require you to go fairly late, but with the Spectre Haunt and the Spirit Breaker, they should be able to initiate globally fairly effectively, even through the mid-game, get that Spectre haunted into a couple kills, and then immediately return her to her farming potential. The real problem that I see for them is just they are running the risk of being choked down, having that map awareness or map space and vision kind of brought in around them. Stranglehold from the Dragon Knight push and the Ancient Apparition threat of Ice Blast. Once this mid-game breaks open, Complexity, I expect them to pick another pusher here. Complexity really could strip away those tier 1s, make it more difficult for the Spectre to find farm, and make it more difficult for the Spirit Breaker to find good gank positions.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how Freedom decide to run this Alchemist, if they maybe play him more of that unknown, Team Unknown style of Alchemist, where he's getting an armlet and maybe instead of Radiance, he's getting more of a fighting build, getting early points and stun to synergize with his teammates. Most teams and players don't end up using Alchemist that way, but it might make more sense this game because of the farm dependency that you have with the Alch and the Spectre.
Yeah, going into just an armlet and being able to be combat ready for that Alchemist would probably be a good call, just because if the Alchemist is going to take a while to come online and the Spectre is going to take a while to get online, they are opening up a perfect path for Complexity to just roll into a victory. So having that Alchemist leverage the Grieval's Greed into a little bit more early mid-game control, there is going to be a like, and that is that pusher that I was expecting. No surprises there. Yeah, they really are going to be hard-pressed to make sure that, in terms of Freedom holding on to ground, it's going to be difficult. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
If I were to make a prediction for this game, especially with this Lycan pickup, I would guess that Complexity want to be knocking down Raxes within 15 minutes, and I think that they're fully equipped to do so.
Wow, 15? You're gonna go straight up 681B on us.
Yeah, I think they're going to go straight up the middle, or as soon as they get the opportunity to. I mean, they have the firepower to sustain themselves in lane and get up early pushing items. Darkseer is not necessarily going to be the easiest to zone out, given the other heroes that you have in a support role. And so I could see Complexity trying to end this very early, picking up those early Roches, and we'll see if Freedom can stop them.
Yeah, I think Lycan going into the Roche pit is a really good call. They're going to strip the tier 1s extremely quickly well, I assume. Whether or not they'll actually be able to knock down Barracks at 15, I agree with you. Like, in a perfect world, that's a pretty good ideal for them. I'm not sure that they really, unless Freedom really slip under the bus. I'm not sure that that's something that we need to be super concerned about. I've only seen a couple games this patch where a Rax was lost before 15 minutes. It's pretty hard now with the sunken towers, but that doesn't mean that it isn't the goal. All right. Yeah, we're just going to kind of break down into the laning phase. I guess we can take a moment, introduce some of our players here, as we've got on compLexity, Swindle's taking that Dark Spear for a spin. Limp is going to be burning up on the Dragon Knight. Chessie is coming out of the jungle on the Lycanthrope. Z-Freak is chilling out on the Ancient Apparition, and Hanskin is ogging on the Oracle. That's way too big of a word for that.
30 seconds to battle.
And for the Dire, we've got Sunbi on the Spectre. We've got Boris, who's been around the NA scene and played with a bunch of different teams on the Alchemist. We've got Eagle on the Spirit Breaker, Jubei on the Disruptor, and IX Mike finally on his signature Abaddon.
All right, and as we get into the game here, just keep in mind how this game is intended to go through for complexity. They need to be active. They need to make sure that they're getting a relatively fast level 6 on their supports, and that they're getting a relatively quick Roshan on Chessie's Lycanthrope. They managed those things, the game is going pretty well for them. If the Spectre is given space, if the Alchemist is given space, maybe a couple early kills going the way of Freedom due to rotations from the Disruptor and from the Spirit Breaker, we could see the game kind of crack open into a longer format that may favor Freedom. That's sort of the pacing that I think we're both expecting, right?
Yeah, and I mean, right away, true to form, Freedom talked about protecting their offlaner. They've got the two supports sitting behind them. Maybe they want to bait out some kind of attempted zone out and try to get a kill off of it.
Yeah, we're already going to have the charge, and Hanskin probably is going to be our first blood here. He will go down. IX Mike might be following up. Will be able to get away. Now Z-Freak is on the chopping block, but with the body blocks out of Chessie, it's not looking very likely. Very close. This could be the charge, but he will pull off a little bit too late, though. Abaddon is coming back, and IX Mike getting extremely low, and Chessie is trying to chase him. IX Mike narrowly getting away. Now Chessie's been baited in. This is a lot of activity. He's going to try to salve up. That's going to be just enough to save him from that auto attack as the Disruptor falls to the grave behind him. Into the dirt he goes as... Now we've got Eagle being chased down by the Wolves, and IX Mike is trying to zone as best he can. All said and done out of that crazy debacle. It's a one-for-one trade, but the first blood did go the way of Freedom.
Yeah, it's a cheeky maneuver from them. Usually you would expect the supports to be sitting behind the Spectre. Obviously they weren't, and they kind of baited out that engagement to grab first blood, but in the end, it was just a one-for-one. And also with the benefit of Lycanthrope is, even if you manage to send a strong lane against him, he can just go into that jungle and it becomes very hard to keep him off farm. Especially once he picks up levels.
Actually basically as good as a kill on Chessie, because he's been forced to walk all the way back and then manually heal. Look how long it's taking him in the jungle, or in the fountain rather. He's actually missing more time than if he had just straight up died. Now granted, he didn't give up to his opponent's a kill bounty because he didn't die, but the amount of time that he spent away was, what was that, like 2 or 3 creep waves? That's pretty painful.
Yeah, that's going to be troublesome. And Dragon Knight having himself a really good time mid so far against the Alchemist, that's going to be something to watch out for. Is Dragon Knight one of those heroes that almost guarantees his farm against just about anyone in this patch? And that'll be something to look forward to as well for complexity.
Well, I just looked at the last hits, and you know how I was talking about how much time... I missed a courier snipe somewhere. Was that these illusions? Did these illusions just kill that courier?
I missed it as well.
I think those illusions just killed the courier. They had sentries. I mean, they are walking back from that period, from that space. The one area that you would realistically imagine the courier dying. So, I don't see where it actually died here in the pause. But either way, it's pretty nice. It was Radiant Courier that died. Yeah. That's a pretty nice little grab. The Dragon Knight does have the bottle up, but he's not going to be able to bottle run. And that means he's just going to be much more dependent on his supports to help him secure runes, right? The Alchemist is probably not going to want to go too heavily around until he gets his bottle as well, but because the Alchemist is going to be trying to get those bounty runes, and one of his supports will probably go out to the other room all the time to help defend, it's going to be difficult for Dragon Knight to actually utilize his bottle for the next 3 minutes.
Yeah, it'll slow him down a little bit, but he does have 2 early points up in Dragon Blood, and most Alchemists like to put down that Acid Spray and allow it to do most of the farming work for them, but in this case, the Dragon Knight just doesn't care. He has more than the armor and regeneration to kind of sit there through it and still force Boris back out of the wave, so a nice counter pick working out pretty well right now for them. Just a strong pick in general, obviously, with the DK mid.
Yeah, and As we kind of continue to break down, I want to kind of keep an eye on how the Spectre is doing, because solo Spectre into Darkseer is not an easy lane, right? That's a melee hero who does not have tremendous right-click. She is a good farmer, but in terms of dealing with the Ion Shell, she's not the most apt personality available.
Yeah, I think they're kind of resigned themselves to letting Swindle get the levels that he wants. They just want to make sure that somebody is able to get some farm under the tower. Yeah. And, I mean, it's kind of too late to zone him now. He's actually about to hit level 5, so...
Yeah, he's actually doing really well for himself. He's got more last hits, almost double the last hits that the Spectre had, right? Like, so sure, some of those are from the jungle, coming over here and doing this sort of contest maneuver, but either way, he is absolutely rocking out.
Yeah, and if compLexity are looking for some kind of timing in which to take towers, I mean, you're talking about essentially a very quick mech here, and that makes it so much harder to fight through them. And Freedom don't have a whole lot of burst damage on their heroes, especially before the ultimates come out on their supports. Even with that, they don't have that much burst, and so it's going to be really hard for them to take fights and hold objectives with that early mech up on the Darkseer.
Yeah, that is also very true. And Lycan, right when the courier got sniped and we were trying to figure out how that happened, I was trying to say how the Lycan, he actually got his first last hit of the game after he came back from the fountain. That's not great. That means that he missed 4 or 5 waves of creeps, I think, in total, before he even got a single last hit. Considering compLexity are kind of on the clock to get going, that's a pretty nice little boost for Team.
Yeah, he's a little behind on experience as well, obviously, because the supports have shared the lane with him. But at the same time, IX Mike has not really gained a foothold in this lane. He hasn't really been farming much either here, so that could be an issue for them as well. I think this lane more or less may be a wash for both teams. I think they pretty much got what they wanted to out of it, but it's starting to turn in the favor of compLexity, I have to believe, because of the Abaddon being shut down a little bit.
All right, we are going to have a charge here down bottom. Onto the Oracle, potentially. Is he going to go and land? He will. Handskin down, already about half health. There's going to be the Spectre coming back in with the ultimate as well, and a very quick kill. A nice little charge coming out.
That's a very early Spectre rotation, and actually, it is one of the side benefits. If you leave that Spectre up there solo instead of trying to zone, those waves go into her tower constantly, and so she's able to get up that experience and come to those early fights. Interested to see what she goes for, as she decided to get that quick phase boots and max dagger to allow her to put out that bit of extra damage in these little skirmishes, and so that's a nice bit of synergy that they've coordinated, but her progression is still going to be pretty important, and she doesn't have the best survivability with this build, and eventually with the items if she doesn't go for her.
Yeah, I'm going to let you continue to talk here for a minute, because apparently we're getting some pixelation on the stream, and I'm not sure why. It's a different issue than we had yesterday, but I'm trying to fix it while dealing with the camera, and I just can't focus on talking while I'm doing all of that.
Yeah,
look at this big sack, though.
The other benefit of a strong Darkseer is that you can fearlessly go into the enemy jungle and really start contesting these stacks, and it's really hard to fight you because when you have an under-leveled level 2 Disruptor and a Spirit Breaker, they can't really force the Darkseer out or kill him, and they have to risk dying themselves. And so you're seeing this contest really start to slow down on the side of Freedom, and this mid-disparity might be the story of the early game here for both teams.
All right, and we are going to have some action here as Eagle charged out there. The glimpse back, but the wall is going to be enough to kill him. Now Jubei on the run. Meanwhile, on the south side, Alchemist looks like he might be in trouble. Back up. We're going to get there just in time for the Oracle to go down.
Disruptor going down to that Oracle as well. And one of the strengths of this hero, he can put out a lot of damage very quickly with the Purifying Flames on short cooldown, and that allows him to have good kill potential in these skirmishes early on. And right now, Freedom being pushed off the map a little bit, and even if IX Mike tries to catch up and farm, they still might lose control of their jungle. That's going to be very important.
All right, and here in the mid lane, Limp is still doing very well. Right, he's on top of the last hits in terms of heroes that haven't gone into the jungle and knocked down a significant number of jungle creeps. Of course, Swindles has been doing extremely well for his own right up here in the off lane. He's actually on top of the last hits, and he's keeping up with the Alchemist in terms of net worth, despite the Alchemist having gone for a Greeble Screed build.
Yeah, the Alk does have 4 points up in Acid Spray, and that kind of illustrates the position that he's in. I feel like you can put more points in Greed if you feel you're able to secure your farm, but in this case he just isn't, and they're going to have to start using Acid Spray to help hold objectives pretty soon at this rate.
Absolutely. And Limp is actually going to dive right in onto the Spectre. She does have Dagger. She's going to try to get away. The AA ult is going to come in. That will land. One more auto attack might be enough. The corrosive damage onto the Spectre may not be enough to finish him. Now Limp getting low. The Abaddon is doing everything he can. The Spectre ultimate really underwhelming there. Not enough health to actually re-engage. Ice Mike doesn't have the Photic Shield in order to get back up into shape. He's getting really low, down to about 100, but now there comes the charge from Eagle to force his opponents off of his ally.
Yeah, they're trying pretty desperately to hold the line and not lose towers here, and damage is just becoming a real big concern. And Boris probably going to get that armlet. Looks like he has on the courier, and I don't know how soon he's going to be forced to fight here, but not the ideal outcome at all. Look at the wards placed by compLexity in the dire jungle.
Yeah. Backing up and taking a look at the way that those wards are. We got one on the new high ground spot, providing plenty of vision on all three camps, and that's just making contesting that much easier.
Yeah, there's your mech up on the Darkseer, and Dragon Knight, once he has mana for his ult, have to believe that he's just going to go ahead and right-click down this tower here mid, and the objective taking begins in earnest for compLexity. And at the same time, you have your hands full dealing with just those 4 heroes with superior experience and just general skill builds and toolkits that are less item dependent. At the same time, Lycanthrope is just bottom free to take a tower or pressure it himself and or go for Roshan. So very methodical compLexity strategy here, just exerting pressure on all sides with their superior early game.
compLexity are taking their time moving into the strategy though. Like, we're already at 10 minutes. They haven't knocked down a single tower yet. Normally around this time, at least in previous patches, you would be wanting to have the map control for the Lycan to quickly be able to go into Roshan.
Well, I will say one thing, barring a minor miracle, there isn't going to be a 15-minute Raxing in this game.
Right. And up top, we're going to have an engagement. Once again, Limp is diving in, and Eagle is not long for this world. Celebration Confetti is going to land courtesy of the AA. Not even necessary, but a nice insurance policy, as now they have the ability to go ahead and siege onto this tower. The free glyph will be used, but it's just a stalling tactic, buying some time for a counter push down bottom. Actually, Limp is going to come back down here, immediately breathe fire on Jubei. There's going to be Hanskin trying to move in as well with the Purge. Ice Mike is just going to Photic Shield and TP away, but the Dragon Tail is there. There's the ultimate coming out of Ice Mike, and Chessie getting around in front, trying to get the body blocks and the attacks. Ice Mike doing everything he can, but he's not long for this world.
Yeah, and even Freedom trying to counter push, knowing that they were going to lose top, they don't take the objectives that quickly at this point. And so it took them just long enough that compLexity felt safe to TP in and get those nice counter kills. Yeah, they're going to take their tier 1 tower of their own down. Freedoms.
Yep. Meanwhile, there's a little bit of fronting out here with Eagle. Eagle should be relatively safe here, but he does want to be careful to make sure that he doesn't get engaged on without his allies ready to come by. Spectre does have Haunt up. If they do decide to make an engagement happen, Spectre could join. About 1,400 towards that Radiance that the Spectre is likely to be getting. Or is the Alchemist going to end up getting the Radiance?
We'll see where they go with that shortly, but again, stacks being contested here as Radiant Creeps have found their way to the Dire Ancients. And, yeah, it really feels like this constriction of space is going to happen soon. With their towers down, their jungle is basically unsustainable for Freedom to farm, and so they're forced now into their Ancients, kind of this small pocket of space in which they can try to get gold and mount a comeback. And I would not be surprised if Roshan falls soon with the rest of the
They're going to try to move on to Hanskin here. The AA ult is going to come out. That's going to land on 3. And here comes the Dragon Knight. Big, bad, breathe fire, ready to make something happen. He can't quite close the distance. They will lose the Oracle, and they will not get anything for it. That's a nice little pickup from Freedom. As we're talking about the space potentially constricting away from them, it's important that they be able to find those pickups wherever they can. Ice Mike going out a bit too far, though, is taking a lot of damage. His ult is up, will be popped. Here comes the charge out of Eagle. Spectre ult is there as well. Z-Freak taking a bit of damage here. As Chessie is going to go and pop his ult and try to chew down Eagle, and the big backing wall is going to be enough to kill out Ice Mike after 2 more auto attacks. This is denied, though. Ice Mike perfectly timing and going to the grave on his own terms. And now they should be able to take down this tower without too much left. Eagle thinking about potentially charging out onto somebody, but there's really no viable target.
Freedom are probably wishing that the amount of experience.
Oh, never mind. Hanskin is going to stay a little bit too long. He's probably not dead here, but one more bash and he might have felt the pain. Sun B is going to rotate in as well. They really want to make something happen because diving into the tower may not be the way to do it. They will get Hanskin, but they're also going to lose the Spirit Breaker for their trouble. And Spectre, without a Haunt and without a Spectral Dagger for one more second, is getting very low herself. She got damage over time on her. Another cast out from the urn. Z-Freak is now out of charges. They should be able to get her away.
Freedom probably wished that the experience on the Spirit Breaker and Disruptor were reversed. That would have given them a much better chance to win that fight with the Static Storm up. Instead, that was not the case, and the Oracle pick is really showing its teeth right now because he's able to provide just enough healing in between the bursts of damage that Freedom put out, and that's going to be enough to save his teammates and ensure that they stay alive to win the fight. So, really nice pickup showing its value here. Nicely played by Hanskin as well.
Absolutely, and they are continuing to apply pressure, which is exactly what they need to be doing. Hopefully opening up some space. Yeah, Chessie is going to jump into a roast pit right now. Undercover smoke. Now, Freedom are definitely aware that this is happening sooner or later, but they may not know that it's happening right now. Vanguard is up on the Spectre, and Alchemist is getting close to Radiance. Those are a couple of items that will help their combat potential quite a bit.
Yeah, as much as you want to shut down that Alchemist, often he just needs a few minutes of breathing room to recover. And so I fully expect that this next Roshan complexity are going to mount a much more sustained push into their opponent's bases. No, they can't maintain the wards and control over that jungle forever. It is going to be a little bit harder for them to take these little skirmishes once the levels are up on the supports and once you have some farm up. And so now it's time for them. They played the delaying phase of the game. Now they need to be able to finish it off.
Yeah, absolutely. As we are getting into the Aegis, it's taking a little while, but he should be able to take it here without too much contest. AA has gotten up the might. It's at 15 minutes. That's pretty early for a support Ancient Apparition to grab that item. That's going to mean that he's going to have levels that much faster. He's going to have potentially add to some other core item that much quicker as well. With the Aegis, we should start to see that push that we were expecting from the beginning of the game. About 15 minutes, might be a little bit later than we expected, but I suspect that it will come out after that Necronomicon is built on Chessie.
Yeah, Swindles has enough money for his Guardian Greaves as well, so a key item, the timing here being hit by both teams. You have that Aegis up, of course, Armlet up on DK, and he's very close to what might be a blink to give them a little bit more lockdown in these fights.
And we're going to have a charge up here on the Swindles. He's up too far forward. Will be going down here. One more auto attack is going to do it. That kill goes on to Sun B, which is actually a pretty nice pickup for that Spectre. However, Limp is coming in from the south side. Moving on to Ix Mike. Ix Mike's ult is going to get him back into shape. And the charge away coming out of the Spirit Breaker is going to be enough in order to get them out of dodge. The tower is going to be the target, though. And this will be enough for Lycan to finish up his next item as well.
Radiant's middle tower is under attack.
Yep, and Freedom going to go for a bit of counter pushing on their own. Swindle is going to be up really soon. I think they're going to take it mid shortly after that. And Sunby is making the most out of his situation in this game. He's been able to pick up a number of kills.
Behind this Alchemist. Ultimate going down out. Yeah, he's going to have to keep him home.
Sunby has been quite opportunistic this game. Of course, he didn't have that easy situation soloing up against the Darkseer, but I think he's made the most of it. He's picked his spots very well with regard to taking fights, and that's mostly been where his golden itemization has come from, but will it be enough?
Yeah, the Radiance is up on the Alchemist. I don't think we mentioned that directly after it came out, but in terms of looking at the overall itemization, you can see compLexity are much more capable of fighting right now, right? They've got a mechanism on the Darkseer, they've got Armlet up on the Dragon Knight, and they are ready to go. Even the Necronomicon has now been finished. Ix Mike is going to take the brunt of the hits here on the front line. Hanskin goes down. A nice back wall, though. The AA ult to follow is going to hit on two. Ix Mike's ult is going to do nothing as he does go down. Alchemist going down as well, and this is going to definitely be a tower.
That was an excellent AA ult. Obviously, it hit just about everyone you needed it to. It hit Mike, and it hit the Alchemist,
Yeah.
so that they could just pursue him and finish him off. And
It was from pretty close, too. Like, it was a fairly small landing pattern.
Yeah, there's good coordination there because the vacuum like synergized very well with it and the wall. And, you talk about the continuity and experience of this team. They've played together a lot and for a while, and so it's starting to show off.
They're gonna dive pretty deep and then be forced kind of out. Z-Freak is taking a lot of damage from Sun B. Ultimate coming out from the Spirit Break as well, but the vacuum is there as long as the Dragon Tail is as well. Eagle will go down under the effect of the ultimate, and Disruptor's going to kind of chill out the fight for a moment. Limp is going to be able to kill off Sun B, it looks like. No! The Abaddon is going to be there to save his life, and now Limp is going to be forced to run away as his ultimate continues to tick down. The charge is there. Alchemist stun is coming out as well. Swindles cannot really help, but the Oracle can. Purging off that stun and letting him out. Hanskin will trade his life for his cores.
All in all, still a pretty good hold there for Freedom, as they might get this Swindles darts here as well.
Yeah, they are a nice vacuum. Swindle's actually trying to get away, but the Spirit Breaker should be enough to finish this off.
He opted not to go for that Greaves and ended up picking up the pipe, which I think is an interesting decision. On the one hand, I don't feel like there's that much magic damage to maybe justify not getting the Greaves and having its cooldown, especially if it might have come back a second time for that fight. But ultimately, again, going for this very team fight heavy item composition, and they were kind of repelled there. They did manage to get some kills and take a decent fight, but they didn't take any objectives beyond the tier 2. So this Aegis is quite likely going to expire before they're really able to get up there. And that's a big hole for Freedom.
Yeah, the compLexity have used it to kind of drill out a lot of the map control, though, and just take a look at their vision, right? Overall on the map, and they have every entrance, or at least every dire side entrance to the dire jungle boarded up. That's going to make it that much more difficult for the Spectre to get out and get farm, and the Alchemist to get out and get farm. For the Alchemist, it's not as big of a deal, because he is going to be able to utilize Greevil's Greed to make up for some of that deficit, but for the Spectre, it can be absolutely devastating.
In terms of item choices here, I wouldn't be surprised if the Alchemist went for a little bit different from his usual Octarine Manta build-up and went for something like an Assault, which is an item we used to see on the Alchemist all the time. And the reason for that, obviously, is just holding back this push, adding some armor to all of his heroes, and reducing the damage output of the Lycanthrope and Dragon Knight, and that'll help them hold their high ground a little bit longer as well. I'm not sure if split push is the best way to go here, but we'll see what decision Boris makes with his next
also,
item.
the split push build that you often see these days with the Octarine and the Manta, that does help you push out the lanes more, but in terms of taking a fight and capitalizing on towers, having that negative armor that does affect towers, it is pretty good for trying to take quick utilization. Ice Mike's just going to be back and back, and he will try to TP home. No Dragon Tail, he will be able to make it. There's very low investment from compLexity, but it is nice that Ice Mike got away.
Yeah, it was an interesting choice there. Darkseer probably had to vacuum him back in to make sure he got hit by the AA ult, and because of that he didn't have it left to cancel the TP, so Mike was able to get away.
Yeah. No overcoming the backdoor protection for you right now. Mr. Big Scary Dragon Limp is going to have to go back and wait for his creeps to come up, disable the backdoor protection, and then he will be able to knock it down relatively handily. There, Ice Mike coming out trying to stall this. I don't know what he could possibly achieve here in this, though. Spearbreaker's going to charge in as well. Now Chessie kind of being left behind. He will have that move speed. He is going to be glimpsed back and is now being held still. The stuff coming out of Boris, but the negative attack damage coming out of Limp is going to be enough to force Boris back. Even Chessie staying so low but running ahead of his team. There's the vacuum. There's the wall. All three getting sucked into it. Forest. Eagle kind of runs through it. Chessie's still extremely low, trying to be healed up by the Oracle. Meanwhile, on the south side, the fight, Swindle's trying to get away. Boris is going to be able to secure that kill. And now Limp trying to run away, or limp himself away, but he'll end up going down as well. Both supports having fallen earlier in the fight. And that is a big cleanup in favor of Team Freedom. And it's not over yet. Swindle's going to be glimpsed back. He doesn't have enough mana for anything but one remaining surge. If they can get vision, they could not get vision for the stun. Swindles is on the run. He should be able to get away. That one last surge, just enough to get him out of there.
When you lose a fight against a lineup that has heroes like Spirit Breaker and Disruptor, you're going to get routed, and you also have to really be careful when you retreat. That's kind of what happened there, is compLexity had some heroes retreating in vision of Freedom, and others were already long gone, so they weren't able to support each other in that fight. It was just a huge fight, potentially a game turner there for Freedom, actually. It went perfectly for them, and everything not in sync. The backline was cut into by the Spectre and the Spirit Breaker onto the squishier backline support heroes and got them out of position. So really good fight for Freedom.
Yeah, that actually tilts the game in their favor for experience and for economic lead for the first time all match. That is a pretty big find, especially considering if you're playing from behind in terms of net worth and you have an Alchemist, you're really far behind, right? You need to be pretty well ahead of your opponents in order to really be considered maximizing games out of that Alchemist.
Yeah, on one level, compLexity did punish some of the early greed from Freedom by taking over their jungle and bowling them out of the lanes, but since then they've been unable to really take objectives cohesively, and a couple of mistakes where people are out of position or not together where they need to be for a fight that is almost certainly going to happen, and so the clock feels like it's ticking against them a little bit now.
Yeah, they are running the risk here of getting caught out with Limp. He's pretty far forward. If there had been vision down for him, that would have been rough. However, SunB does not see it coming and will just immediately be torn apart. Ix Mike being forced to run away as well. The stun comes out from the Alchemist. He's trying to come down off the high ground, but really thinks better of it. Chessie trying to charge in, not able to. But geez, a haste rune on the Dragon Knight, and you cannot get away from him. All that damage going out. They're going to back out, wait for some creeps to come up. No Spectre for 34 seconds, but she does have the Haunt when she's back. We're still relatively early in this game, and the respawn timers are not that long.
No creeps is a really big deal there, because they almost certainly would have gone high ground and tried to force out a buyback on SunB, who of course did not have the gold for it. So that was a big hold there coming low at the cost of Spectre's life. But still, it worked out for them because they had to commit a lot to pick up that kill, and they weren't able to capitalize afterwards.
Yeah, the Lycan is working toward his next big item, and the Ancient Apparition actually grabbing out a little bit of survivability as well as the Cripple with the Rod of Atos. That's going to help against the Alchemist, but I don't necessarily know that it will help too much against the rest of the hero pool. Right, Spirit Breaker still has the charge to get into his position. You still have the Spectre who can haunt into position. And they are going to move on to... It's the Oracle they move on to. And not quite able to secure anybody else, but an Oracle kill and maybe capitalizing into the tower will be nice.
SunB was pinging out the Dragon Knight, but they weren't close enough to get detection to be able to kill him. That would have been a huge kill right there for them to secure. At this rate, Oracle's going to be back fairly soon, so perhaps Roshan will be contested. I'm not sure if Freedom feels safe going in there. On the other hand, with the Acid Spray, they can't take it down fairly quickly, but they're going to wisely
they're going to have
here.
to back out. With the Ancient Apparition ult, it's just way too risky to group up on that sort of a choke point here, especially when they are on the verge of coming back into this game from a deficit. So, as we're kind of moving out here, taking a look at the rest of the items, the pipe is now finished on Darkseer as well. That will help a little bit against the Static Storm. It will help a bit against the, basically the Static Storm. Sanj is also done on Ix Mike. And compLexity want to fight in the Roche pick. Ix Mike scouting it out. As there goes the Dragon Tail, there's a little fight going on while Roche is still ongoing. There's going to be the Oracle, there's the back end, but the Silence comes out just in time. Eagle starts all the way to the back end, is going to clear out onto the Oracle, but AAL is going to land onto Eagle. Eagle should be going down here. As Boris is chasing down after Limp, there's a nice armlet talk about the stun should be enough in order to secure this kill. Meanwhile, the Spectre is going to clear out another kill here as well, and Chessie getting very low. There is no answer except to kill him.
That was the charge of a lifetime from the Spirit Breaker. I think he ran through all 5 heroes of compLexity to get to the back line. And Freedom, once they come online and have their items, they have this real run-at-you type of lineup that does it seemingly better than compLexity. We talked about the influence of Wall against melee heroes, but it just doesn't feel like it's enough to hold them back at this point. They just keep on running at you. And compLexity thought they could take Roche with the Spectre Haunt down, but they were mistaken on that one.
Yeah, this is a big problem, right? Because we had said compLexity needed to execute really early. You had said that you wanted to see a rack by 15 minutes. I was closer to maybe the 20-minute mark you want to see your first Rax drop, but they were way off of that point. And a couple of stutter steps, a couple of nice fights by Freedom, and suddenly compLexity pushing in the high ground is starting to look more and more Sisyphean.
Yeah, I think compLexity are on the ropes here. Usually when you have an ultimate dependent lineup, as compLexity do, you don't want to be in this position where you pretty much have to hit every ult perfectly to even have a chance of winning the fight. That's the situation that they found themselves in, but not really much they can do about that at this point. It's a function of having not finished the game as probably when they projected and wanted to do so. And they're firmly on the back foot now. It's going to be very hard for them to fight against Freedom. They're going to get out-farmed for sure, and they're going to get run at now. Have to be very precise with their spells from here on out.
Yeah, there's the smoke and will be dissipated there by Swindles. And Spectre ult is out as well. The Spectre ended up coming out here trying to kill Z-Freak. Meanwhile, up here, Swindles has been brought back down. The Vision, actually during the fight, Jubei is counter-warding instead of attacking Swindles. Swindles almost gets away, but not quite. And Sun B is zipping out and grabbing that Ancient Apparition there during that fight was also a really good call. He wasn't needed up there to kill Swindles. There's no reason for him to go there. Instead, kind of jumping down into the river, where Ancient Apparition is often going to be alone, because he wants to be far enough away from these fights to land multi-man Ice Blast. That's a quick grab by Limp. The counter charge here by Eagle, but both teams are going to retreat to their corners after that. And here comes the stun out of Boris in the bottom lane. Now Chessie is going to dodge it. Nope, he did not quite get the dodge. But he was able to get his ultimate off, making it very difficult for the Alchemist to really threaten to chase him down.
Yeah, it's a tough spot to be in for compLexity. You still can win fights if you can get these kind of pickoffs and bait Freedom into responding late or out of position, then you can still potentially take a fight with this lineup. But Net Worth Graph tells much of the story right now. It's going to be very hard for them to come back into this game.
So have you felt like this Rod of Atos pickup by the Ancient Apparition has really paid off in a big way, or has it really just been a little... I feel like it's been a little underwhelming. There's a couple of moments where it's been nice, but it certainly hasn't been the impact that maybe a Cyclone Staff would be in order to cancel some of these charges and get rid of the Alchemist so that they can't stun, stuff like that.
I agree with you on that front. It feels a little bit underwhelming. He still can't really stand in fights and use it, and when you talk about heroes like Spectre or Spirit Breaker who can just, Atos be damned, still get to the backline and just close the gap with you, it feels very underwhelming for those heroes. It's more like often like a chase item, but they're not in a position to really chase down anybody at this point or focus them down. They're just getting run at and overwhelmed.
By the time he had even picked it up, they were already pushing toward high ground, right? So there's immediate signs on the handskin. Not quite able to get it with the kinetic field. Oh, huge back into the ice blast, into the wall. Everybody struggles away. Mike's ult is going to be pop up to no avail. He's going to have to try TP away, but the Dragon Tail isn't there. Meanwhile, the Spectre has cast out the ult there. Boris has used the Aegis as well. He's trying to move on to Chessie. He does manage to kill Chessie, but Limp is going to be there to follow up. That's going to be 4 men down and an Aegis, all for the cost of the Lycan. What a vacuum wall ice blast combination, and just when it seemed like compLexity were on the ropes, they showed they have the potential to turn this game around.
Well, we talked about perfect Wombo combos. That was about as perfect as it's going to get. If I'm not mistaken, that was a 4-man vacuum wall into an AA ult, and again, they can take these skirmishes that start even poorly for them, but bait enemy heroes out of position. compLexity can win these fights. The ult was dropped onto Handskin there, but they didn't have the burst or the follow-up to immediately kill him. That allowed everyone else to come in, and they fought in this little bottleneck right beneath that ward spot on Radiant, and that was very costly for them.
Yeah, also bear in mind, as we're moving through this, that it's increasingly difficult for compLexity to play, not just because of the economic and experience disadvantage, but also because they're not able to maintain vision anymore. They haven't had a vision advantage in this game for a couple of minutes now, and you can just see all of the counter warding going on here by the Dire side, just walking through, dropping sentries both to make sure the Dragon Knight is not nearby and to get rid of the wards and common ward spots. Z-Freak doing his best to try and maintain his own vision integrity, but it is an uphill battle at this point.
Yeah, Z-Freak has that gem to try to clear out some of this vision, but I think for Freedom, you can be a little bit more patient here. You can make sure you secure the next Aegis and just keep letting your heroes do what they do well. In the case of the Alchemist, just keep farming. When you get those Aghanim Scepters up on heroes like Disruptor, for example, it's going to counter the items and BKBs of Complexity. On the Spirit Breaker, it's not bad either because it becomes an AoE stun type of thing, which he's already doing with his charge, and that could be very disruptive to Complexity in the long run. And of course, on the Abaddon, it allows him to end up taking a lot of the damage that would have gone to his allies. And so, not the best Ags pickups in terms of these aren't the heroes you usually expect to see them with, but not the worst either. Very useful.
Yeah, for Abaddon especially, there's a rarely seen interaction there as well. And that if you have a big 4-man Ice Blast, actually, we're going to have to come back to this because Spectre is going to be moved on here by Limp, the Ice Blast landing as well. And Limp doing everything he can in order to knock her down, but it will not be there. And he's going to try to teleport away. There will not be the stun from Boris, but that was a BKB charge used coming out of the Dragon Knight. So what I was going to say is if you do have a big 4-man Ice Blast and the Abaddon is sitting there, Abaddon can still take damage and he won't shatter while his ult is going. So you still are mitigating a lot of damage with that item pickup in a way that you wouldn't necessarily think to be as useful in a lot of other games. Canskin is going to go down here. Spectre also grabbing the Ancient Apparition. Meanwhile,
the gems on the deck, I'm not sure if they noticed that, but that, again, another big issue for Complexity at this point, and Illusion walks past it. I guess they still don't see it, but at this point, they got other things on their mind. They can just
the Spectre killed him and then immediately teleported to a different hero. So we're going to have this fight breaking down by the tier 2, though. Swindles is trying to get away. There's going to be the Surge, but not quite able to get out before the slow lands. A nice vacuum, but there's really no follow-up. Swindles is going to go down. They need this Ancient Apparition up before they can really fight. I mean, Lycan's not even there. He teleports out.
Middle tower has fallen.
So he runs
We
out.
look at Ancient Apparition as a counter generally to a hero like an Alchemist or an Abaddon, but that's still kind of a conditional counter. It's an ult-dependent counter, which isn't always the best. So if you don't have the follow-up damage, or the hero is dead, obviously, you don't have the window in which to exploit that ultimate, it really doesn't end up being a counter at all. And so, it's
the best way to get rid of your counters is just to make sure they're trying to respawn when you're doing stuff, right? It doesn't really matter what hero you have to counter somebody else. If he's not alive, he's not going to be doing that much. Alright, so Complexity are able to salvage their racks for the time being, but there we go. Linda's going to go throw out the Dragon Tail. We realize that they're going to be moved on. The AO is going to swing right by, and there it goes. The tail does catch a lot of Freedom, but none of them get hit in the Ice Blast. Now, nice big back into the wall. The Ice Blast is about to expire, though. Ice Mike is able to get away. Chessie now chasing down after Eagle. Eagle is taking a fair amount of damage, so he'll be able to charge away. Meanwhile, Boris is just too tanky. He is not under the effect of the Ice Blast, and he does have an aphotic shield there as well. Throws out the stun, getting ready to go back in. The mischance just doing him lots of favors. Ice Mike is also going to be able to charge in here as Chessie does go down. He has buyback if he needs it, and now might be the time. They're diving in pretty deep. Olympus is going to try to get away with the Shadow Blade. AA has buyback, Lycan has buyback, but they're going to wait. There it is. They had to make sure they bought back before those creeps came into the base. While the backdoor protection was up. Now they're going to move on to IX and Mike. It looks like they do not hit Boris with that ultimate. Limp trying to make something happen here on the IX Mike with the ultimate, purging him from that no movement speed buff, and they're not going to get anything for those buybacks other than the right to keep that racks up for another couple minutes.
Yeah, the AA ult kind of split the wickets right there, and all heroes kind of just splitting out from it. But yeah, even if it hit, you just have to have all that damage in a very small span of time to win the fight. So I think at this point, Complexity's still holding on, still perhaps a chance of a throw. It's always possible, but I think Freedom, as long as they play consistently, will be able to take this game one here in this Star Series Group B America's qualifiers.
That gem was, by the way, just recovered by the Disruptor on the way out. They noticed it, and he picked it up and put it on his courier. So, taking a look at the items overall, not a lot that we haven't seen except the refresher coming out of the Spectre. That is new, if I'm not mistaken. In terms of Complexity, they have not really managed to secure that much more. Shiva's Guard that we will see used for these AoE fights. They're immediately going to find people in the smoke. There's going to be Spectre ultimate. Jesse's going to use his ult as well, try to run through with the BKB, chasing down Jubei. Meanwhile, on the south side of the fight, Sunday is just tearing Swindles a new one. A vacuum wall will not really be very much. The Disruptor goes down, but it is for 3 of complexity, and there are no buybacks available.
Usually the Lycanthrope is trying to run down heroes who are trying to run away from him. In this case, got that ult on, he's frantically escaping for his life. That's basically the state of this game right now for complexity.
Absolutely. Complexity still have some potential to take a game here, but they really do need to get a strong team fight and a strong pick. And giving up a free Aegis plus cheese is probably not the way to do that, especially when they're now playing at 14,000 net worth deficit.
Yeah, and I was wondering if they're going to give both the Aegis and the cheese to the supports here. It feels like the cores have seldom even been threatened in these last few fights. And there is good synergy at this point. I mean, everything looks rosy for them, so it's easy to say this, but with the Abaddon applying the Curse of Avernus as a frontliner and helping the rest of his heroes just right-click away, a lot of synergy on the side of Freedom that has come to full bloom here with the surviving the early game from them.
Yeah, I don't know if that's synergy or if that's just when you're ahead, things tend to work out for you, but it is giving them a lot of opportunity in order to move in. The Spectre, of course, not needing that refresher on her person since she did just use it, is going to put it into the fountain and instead hold on to the Aegis. Tier 2 does go down bottom, and that is going to be another lifeline cut short for complexity as Limp teleports back home, getting ready to defend. Wow, look at this poor Disruptor. I just realized he's got no items. Literally just grounded it. Oh boy, Ice Mike going pretty deep. He does have his ultimate. And Siegfried doesn't want to use the Ice Blast quite yet. He will actually use the Ice Blast and get nobody with it. Now the re-engagement coming out. Stun will be stopped there by the Magic Minion coming out of the Black King Bar. Jubei getting very low. He is going to go down. Meanwhile, the charge into the backline is going to be enough for Eagle to kill out the Ancient Apparition, but the ult was already used there. Swindles is going to be shot down by the Spectre, who is away in the backline, since Limp is going to try to get away, but will be stunned out. There is the GG call. Yeah.
Well, Freedom, a team that's been tinkering around kind of with different players, wanting to make some replacements and kind of trying to find themselves basically after the qualifiers, and this is a good way to do that with this Game 1 win over complexity.
Yeah, absolutely. As we're going to go right into game number 2 here, I know some people were talking about some problems with the stream. I've been trying to poke at it a little bit while we were casting. I'm going to go back in there and see what I can do in between games when I'm not also trying to control camera and talk about what's going on. But we will see what we can do about that. My name is Gorgon the Wonder Cow. I have been joined by Jack Korean Barbecue at